hopefully your connection is a bit better and we can figure this out.
I hope so too. Last week I was teaching a class and I got all the power shut off at 9:05 after I had started the class at 9. And so I feel the pain of a technical difficulty very viscerally right now. So hopefully my power can stay on and we can make it through today. But thank you very much for having me.
Great. It's great having you here. Do you want to share your screen?
Yes, I do.
Righto.
There we go.
Okay, cool.
Awesome.
All right, so the stage is yours.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me today. Again, my name is Eve Porcello. You can find me on the internet at Eve Porcello. You can send me an email, eve@moonhighway.com, if any questions come up. Official hello. I'm coming to you live from Tahoe City, California today, where I work at Moon Highway. We teach a lot of JavaScript classes. So in addition to that, we create curriculums for all sorts of classes. For LinkedIn Learning, we talked about all this. I'm going to go through this quickly. Another thing that we're working on now is this course, graphqlworkshop.com. So do take some time to check out that site. It's very cool. And we have a free email course running if you sign up there. So, I wanted to take a step back and talk about a philosophical question. My philosophical question is, how do you get things done? So when I think about how I get things done, I think about the new year. I think about resolutions. I think about all of the things that on January 1st I want to accomplish. I'm a very resolution-oriented person because my birthday is on January 2nd. So I feel like as my year starts, so does the year for everybody. So I feel a lot of pressure. I feel a lot of stress to come up with a good resolution and be a better version of myself every single year. So every year it sort of looks like this. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to exercise every morning at 5:30. I'm going to cook vegan every day. I'm going to spend hours cooking. I'm going to meditate 3 times a day. I'm going to triple my business sales. And I'm going to call my worst relatives once a week. So I go hard at resolutions. But by January 3rd, I have given up. I'm eating ice cream for dinner because I've bitten off more than I can chew. So this makes me think a little bit about queries. So when we think about how we get stuff done, we want to think about how does a GraphQL query get stuff done? So a query typically looks like this. We send a query to a GraphQL endpoint over HTTP, and then we get back some data. And it's going to wait for all of the fields to get that data back. So typically kind of the story of GraphQL becomes we request only the data we want, and then we get back a response that looks just like that request. However, sometimes that request has a lot of different fields. Let's think about how a mutation gets things done. So mutation gets things done by taking in a few details about what we want to change, like setting the lift status at a ski resort. Then our response looks exactly the same as this, matching up all of those different fields. We also have subscriptions in GraphQL. And the way that subscriptions get things done is we send them over WebSockets. Unlike our queries and mutations, all of our subscriptions are sent over WebSockets. And then we set up a listener. So we're going to wait to see whenever a lift changes. And then we're going to get back all of these responses. And I should have animated those better, but you know what I meant. They should come back one at a time, anytime the data changes. So our clients are going to be informed. So that is what is included in the GraphQL spec. We got the queries. Think of those as fetches from our APIs. We got mutations. Those are going to write data. And then subscriptions. So we think about these as being, and they're defined as such, long-lived requests that fetch data in response to these events. So you can find all this information in this thing called the GraphQL spec. So the GraphQL spec, if we scroll up to the top, this is this document that is constantly being worked on by a very awesome group of people, and they are going to be responsible for really the future of the language. So anything that's part of the GraphQL spec is here. And for a long time, we've had the query, the mutation, and the subscription as our operations for making this work. But like I said, we have these really good big queries, right? We might have tons of different fields on this cat, and I need to wait for all of them to be fulfilled. That sounds a whole lot like my resolution. I'm trying to do too much in a single request. So maybe if at the beginning of the year, when I'm thinking about my resolutions, if I just broke things down a little bit, maybe instead of exercising every morning for an hour at 5:30 in the morning, even though I don't really wake up at 5:30 in the morning, I can walk outside for 5 minutes. Maybe I can eat one vegetable. Instead of meditating 3 times a day, maybe I can just take 1 minute to breathe. Maybe I can send out an email to our list. And then maybe I can't call my worst relative once a week. I can text my okay cousin, the cousin I sort of get along with. So in life, we can think about, and there are tons of books about this, atomic habits, tiny habits, things like that. We want to take a huge chunk of stuff and break it down into smaller bits. Over time, it's going to feel like we're not getting as far as we want to, but those little tiny habits are going to add up over time. The same goes with this query. So my big old query here on the left, I can instead think about breaking this down. So I can break it down into a couple of fields, then maybe this extra information, maybe I don't need to know my cat's astrological sign right away. I can load that later, and then that will subsequently load on the page. So this is where we're at now. We have these 2 awesome new features that are going to be part of the GraphQL spec called defer and stream. And they're going to help us to break down our requests into smaller chunks. So the idea of defer was first brought up at GraphQL Europe in 2016, which is a long time ago at this point. But all of these proposals are being actively worked on right now. So there's this blog on the Apollo GraphQL blog that was written in 2016 after that announcement that is this image that I've thought about for a long time. And this is kind of how defer is put together. So with defer, well, I should start over here. Without defer, we're going to wait for all of our data to be ready, and then it's going to load. So we got that loading spinner up there for a while. We know about loading spinners after today. Sometimes internet connections can be slow. So over here on the right, we're saying, all right, load the first information first, and then go ahead and load this information later. So you're prioritizing based on where this is in the page. And this is going to allow the user to have a bump in perceived performance. In other words, it feels like this website is fast. And then we can start to prioritize that data as we're fetching. This is what this looks like inside of a query. So the defer directive is added on a field here on a fragment. So we can create a fragment called extraneous cat details. It'll give us a bunch of extra fields that we want to load. Name, location, birth location, and weight will load first. Then we'll defer. This will fork the process, and then those fields will be passed to the client once they're ready. The other piece here is stream. So we have this query. We have a cat. It has a name. And then we want to load this list of friends as well. So this is fine if you have a few different friends. But this is my cat Biscuit. He has a lot of different friends. So we can be waiting for all these cats to load forever. All his friends look the same, I guess, too. So the way that stream works here is because we're returning a list here from friends, the stream directive can be added, and this can be added to anything that returns a list. And I can say, all right, give me the first 3, and then we'll load subsequent cats later. So that's what we're doing here with that initial count argument. We're saying, give me 3, then we'll load more and more as time continues. So you can start to see how this works really nicely with a list pattern. List can be any number of values long. Typically, we would handle that with something like pagination, but maybe pagination isn't the right strategy if we still want to load things on the same page. What we'll do here is we'll say load 3, and then we can grab more later. Cool stuff. It also, if we extrapolate this a step further, we can see how these would work together. So we have a stream here. We're going to get the first 3, and then we can load the name of those first 3 cats, and then load all of these extra fields about astrology and cats, bicycles, and things like that using defer. So both of these can be used together in the query language. So this is an important thing to know. It's that these are coming to the spec, but also these are going to be added to the query language. So you may have seen schema directives before. These are a little different. These are added to the actual query so that our clients can specify exactly what data they want and they can prioritize it. So recently I found out about this really cool project. It's called GraphQL Bleeding Edge Playground. So what this is going to do is it's going to allow you to play around with the latest features that are part of the proposed spec, but may not be included in the spec already and may not be included in the libraries that we're used to using. If you're used to using, I don't know, Apollo server, it's not built in yet, but you can still play around with this stuff. So what I did to make this little demo work is literally I downloaded this project. And if you want to try this, that's why I'm telling you about it. I downloaded the project. I opened up this file called definitions here. And this definitions file had a bunch of stuff that I didn't really care about. I wanted to make my own schema. So the schema is being populated with this server folder in the file called schema ts. Sorry, I should know better than to have a screen look so small. And the schema ts is going to include everything related to which kinds of objects we want to create. So let's take a look at this in action. Let me get my secret screen of queries over here. And I have this project running on localhost 3000. And the default is that it spins up a graphical instance here so that we can start to test some of those queries. So here's what the query language would look like. We're going to write a query. And if anybody's having trouble seeing, just yell at me in the chat politely or whatever. I don't care. So let's give this an operation name. I'll call it cat information. We're going to query cat information, the field. And then I want to grab name and hanging in there. So these are quick fields that I can grab. But let's say I wanted to grab a couple extra fields, but they may be lower down on the page. They may not be the most important information. So I'm going to call it cat extras. I'll create a GraphQL fragment on the cat type. And I can plug in any one of these fields I want to. Here, I'm going to add favorite color, but we're going to say ... cat extras to plug those in. And then I'll say @defer. And then once I send this query, check it out. I have some data. I have biscuit and hanging in there. And then it had that property called has next that was set to true. So once I have the first initial fields, then it's going to give me back in a second payload the data for this fragment. So let me run it again so we can see it. Has next is this important property. When it's true, it's going to continually fetch data. It's going to continue to fetch any fields that are part of the fragment. Once this has been returned, has next is set to false. Pretty cool stuff. So that's the idea with defer. We can really see how that might work. We saw the little GIF before, prioritizing anything we need. Now, the next thing I want to do is let's get rid of this. You can also use the inline fragment syntax. So I could say ... on cat on the type cat. There we go. Then we will say, what's it called? Favorite color. We obviously want to know that information. And what we need to do here is we need to add the defer. So we'll wait for it. And then we get that back. So either way is fine, whatever you prefer. The separate fragment is a little easier to manage, but this is totally fine too. Now, let's talk a little bit about the stream. The stream is a little different. We're going to call this query streaming cats, and we're going to call this field stream cats. So what does stream cats return? It just returns a bunch of cat names. And the way that we'll access this is we're going to say at stream initial count 1. So this is going to give me one cat with our first request, and then it's going to give me all of the subsequent cats that are part of the array. So remember I said that the stream typically means that we're returning a list. Not typically, it does mean that. And so this is going to work on any iterable value. So let's hit play on streaming cats. We got biscuit. Notice this has next property. Then we got jungle. And then we have Ovi. And then has next is set to false. So we really have 4 different payloads coming back. There's 3 items that are part of the list. And then we're going to return that as a stream. So a lot of the data that we use all over the internet is a list, right? We have a Twitter feed, for example. It has all sorts of different tweets that are returned. Maybe we want to just return the first 10 tweets. Then it'll stream the rest. And this is going to make our application look a lot better because it'll make it look like it's working. We aren't going to have a situation where we are just loading forever and then displaying some information. Instead, we can render something, which is always better than nothing. And then this is going to help us make our UI look like it works much better. So we got our query here with defer. So this is going to kind of hit pause, then go fetch a little bit more data. Now streaming just means that this is going to allow us to render an initial 2 or 3. Let's change this to 2 to see how that works. So this gives us 2 cats. We got 1 more, and then it's false. So lots of possibilities here as we start to incorporate this into our projects. I think more and more of our favorite servers are going to implement this, and I'm ready to use it. I want to use it now. So I encourage you to start playing around with this. So where can you learn more? The defer and stream RFC request for comment is here on the repo. So I'll share a link to my slides in just a second, and all the links are there. But this kind of gets into greater detail about what exactly is included. And I should give a shout out to Liliana Matos and Rob Richard, who work at First Dibs, who are really championing this spec change, and it's going to affect all of us in really nice ways. The other place that you can look is this proposed edits to the spec. If you want to see kind of what's included in the future, there's all sorts of interesting conversations going on over here. So I don't really contribute to the spec myself, but I definitely lurk in these repos and check out what's new. And if you want to try it out, GraphQL Bleeding Edge Playground. You also, in the Express GraphQL project, there is a defer and stream branch. And same goes for GraphQL.js. So you can always check this out. And there's a bunch of other ones in GraphQL.js too. So if there's something that you want to kick the tires of, just check out those repos. All right. That is my time for today. I want to thank everybody for being here. You can find me on Twitter or our website, Moon Highway. Check out our mailing list, bit.ly/Moon Highway, for more on GraphQL workshop coming out. And if you have any questions, always feel free to get in touch. I like to talk about GraphQL, so never a bad question. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Eve. That was an insightful talk, and I'm looking forward to diving into defer and the stream directives.
Yeah.
Let's take, do you have a couple of moments to take some questions from the audience?
Sure, yeah.
All right, so we haven't had any come in, but this is your moment now. And let's see if we have any questions come in. Okay, so there's none coming in from the crowd. On that note, maybe I have a quick question. So using these features relies on using WebSockets for the transport layer, if I understand correctly. Or can that be used also with just a simple HTTP connection?
Yeah, really good question. So it's not over WebSockets, just subscriptions are WebSockets. This is actually over HTTP. So instead of thinking about our requests as being a single request and a single response, we're using kind of things that have existed for a while, chunks basically. So sending back these little bits of data that can be returned. So yeah, I think that's one really cool thing is sometimes people are wary of using WebSockets and because it's tricky to scale and you have to have a bit of knowledge about how to keep all that data in sync. This works strictly over HTTP.
Got it. And okay, we have a funny question. Do you think
I see.
GraphQL is better than REST? Than the rest?
Good question. I think so. I have been quoted on stage as saying GraphQL is better than REST. So if I say it's not, someone will show me a photo of myself saying that. But I do feel like when approaching a project, I tend to reach for GraphQL first versus REST, setting up an API. However, both have their merits. Both can be used really well together. So that's where a lot of people get started with starting their journey with GraphQL is just wrapping their existing REST APIs. So I've evolved my thoughts on this. I think you don't have to burn down REST. We don't have to be mad at REST people. I'm not trying to beef with the REST community. I think we can all coexist nicely and get a lot of cool benefits out of both.
I also imagine that each developer's experience matters a lot. I mean, if you're already quite experienced with GraphQL, then it might be just like natural for you to pick that. Whereas if you have to learn it in order to implement it in a project, that can send you down a tricky path.
Totally. Yeah, I think I make jokes about this, but like using the thing you know how to use is probably a good place to start because it doesn't mean it's better than anything else, but it does mean you probably will be able to use it more quickly. So I think learning a bit about GraphQL is always a fun idea. And if you're at this meetup, then you're already on the journey. So.
And then one last question from Matt Overholt.
Sure.
My question is, how is defer stream different from using, say, a relay paginated query?
Yeah, I think we're thinking about pagination and deferring fields as being two different use cases. Pagination sort of means we're thinking about data as pages. I'm trying not to use the word pages to describe pagination, but we're thinking about the first 10 records and then we grab another 10 and another 10. With defer, we're thinking about how do we prioritize the fields that are coming back. And defer really helps us on a field level, and stream is a little bit different, whereas it instead of thinking of things as pages, it thinks of things as little chunks.
Got it. Thank you for that. And then one maybe final question we have from Benny. So are you aware of whether or how far along any of the popular servers are in implementing it?
Yeah. So right now, the The pageant, well, the different stream stuff is being released as a reference implementation as part of Express GraphQL and GraphQL JS. And when I share my links, those are found in there too. So that'll be a guideline for how other servers should implement. And then once the spec is stable, once the reference implementation is stable, then I would assume that other servers like Apollo server will start walking the road of adding that support to their own servers.
Cool. So Eve, thank you again so much for giving this insightful talk, and hope to see you soon at one of the other meetups.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
All right.